So the next video is going to be about taking the vector artwork that we've just created, saving it out and importing it cleanly into our 3D package. So the first thing we need to be aware of is the actual format that we need to save this line work out as. So under the Illustrator menu we're going to click Save As, and inside here I've already created a scene directory, and in here I'm going to save my my Illustrator file format, which is going to be an Adobe Illustrator.ai file format. I'm going to save it in the data directory because this is where Maya will look for it when we first ask it to look. So it's an AI format, and I'm going to click on giving this a name. So I'm just going to give this a name as the plan view. Very original. I'll click Save, and Illustrator will come up with a version option. We're going to roll back to version 8. It will give us a little warning in here telling us that this is a legacy format and some of the conversion things might not translate properly, but as we've only used the pen tool to create a vector line, we should have no problems with this. So I'm going to click OK. Now it's just worth pointing out that when we save this, it's going to give us a little warning, we are not saving with the anchor point in the bottom corner. So this is going to float a little bit and we might have to go and look for it. So next thing we need to do is go to Maya. So inside Maya I've already created the subfolders system using the project window, and inside the project window I created a new project in the folder system I wanted. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to set the unit size up for this scene using Windows, Settings and Preferences, and this will open up a flyout window, and inside the preferences we need to set our settings size here in the working units, and the working units we're going to set are meters. Okay, and you can instantly see that this has created a change inside here. Okay, so I'm going to hit save, and then if we look at the panel layout of 4 views, if we hit Shift and F, it will zoom out the camera to the extent that we need. Now there is there can be a little problem with this. I'm just going to select the move tool. This is the move tool, and I'm going to go view, select camera in this tool, and just in the perspective view I just want you to see that the camera plane is actually set 1 unit above the ground plane, so anything that I build above this unit won't be seen. So it's worth translating everything to 100. So if you select each camera, you can see that where it says 1, you can set that to 100 on each one. Select camera. Okay, and that will just zoom those cameras out, so those cameras should now be a little bit better. Okay, so anything I draw now in here, you see that if I drag this up, we're not losing it in any of the views. Okay, so we've got our grid. Our grid's still set to meters. Now this grid at the moment is set to a 12 by 12 meter, so we've got 24 meters across each one. That's quite a big area, but I'll leave it for now. We'll see how that comes in. But if I create a cube, that cube, as you can see, is a 1 by 1 meter cube, so everything sort of works out quite well there, so that's okay. Next on my list then is to import those Illustrator curves. So we will create an Illustrator object. Okay, so this is going to be an Illustrator object, and in here we can tell it what we want to create. Now I wanted to create curves. Okay, so it's just going to bring the curves in, but it could actually create a bevel for us, but we're going to create some curves. So I'm going to click Create, and it will ask me to go and find my project. So I'm inside my project here, the current project. I want to go into Data, and I'm going to hit the Plan Preview, click Open. Okay, and there we see that it's actually brought that file in. Okay, and remember it was in centimeters, so the file has come in as an A4 sheet of paper pretty much, which is way down here. So remember I did say we needed to scale this, so let's just go to the perspective and the panel, the outliner view, and you can see that we've got two curves in there. Those are the two curves that we created. Now I need to scale up this in particular. Now I'm going to first of all rotate the camera, rotate the curves around the x-axis by -90 degrees. Okay, so let's just have a look where that went. I did a translate, so that was terribly wrong. -90 degrees. Okay, this should lay the curve flat, as you can see. So it's laying it flat, but it hasn't done anything. There's nothing changed on here. This is good. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to start scaling this up. Now remember we needed this 1 by 1 meter cube, so there is the 1 by 1 meter cube that we're going to use to scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually snap the pivot point of this object into this curve system here. So I'm going to turn on the points, the curve snapping. Turn this on, and I'm going to hold down D, which will effectively change the pivot type and allow me to move that pivot point. Now if I hold down the middle mouse button, I can begin to snap that inside, as you can see. That's because it does need to be, you need to actually be away from it and snap on the curve. So if I have middle mouse with D selected, I can snap. So I'm going to snap that one in, and then I'm going to turn this one off and turn grid snap on, and I'm going to snap this to this point here. Okay, this is quite important. Alright, so we've got this snapped in. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the grid snap, and I'm going to begin scale. So I'm going to use the scale tool. This is this one here. Oops. Scale tool, and I'm going to begin to scale using the center scale. And as we can see, I can see these scales going up here. So I could maybe start to have a look at these and say maybe try 50%, or maybe even try 100%. And there we go. Okay, so this is now scaled up to a 1 by 1 meter square. Now, when I made this square in the first video, it wasn't exactly 1 meter. So sorry, it wasn't exactly a 1 by 1 centimeter square. So I'm going to have to appreciate that that's probably not correct. Now I've got this in the right place, I'm going to use still with snap on, I'm just going to snap this so that I more or less center up my plan view. There we go. And I'm going to turn that off. So now I have this vector. As you can see, it's hovering above the grid, so there's a bit of a problem there. So we need to bring this down. So let's just select this one, and we're going to use the grid snap again, and we're just going to use the y-axis to snap that one down, and we can turn the grid snap off. So we've got our vector, and this is showing now. This is quite accurate. This is an accurate way of bringing things in. If I turn off the grid, you can see we've got this vector line art. We can select it. We can snap things to it. It's a curve, just like it would be if we were designing this in Maya. So it's a very important bit of understanding the 3D software, is to be able to bring these vector curves in, and then to be able to use these curves to create some geometry from them. Okay, so now we should save the scene. So we'll turn the grid back on so we can see this. So we'll go File, Save Scene As, and I'm going to save this scene as a base vector, just so that I can make the next save will be something I can use. Okay, obviously we're using a student version. And the last thing I want to do is just create a layer, a display layer for me to use. So I'm just going to drag this up a little bit so you can see this. And the easiest way for me to do this is to select the Illustrator Curve group that we've got in here. And then if we look at these, we can actually create a new layer and assign the selected objects. So we've got some objects selected, so let's do that. This comes in as layer 1, so I want to double click on this, and this will open up our little edit layer menu. I'm just going to call this REF and underscore CRV. So it's our reference curve. I want the display type to be a reference, so I don't want to be able to select it. I want it to be visible, and I'd like it to be a different colour, so I'm going to use a boldish colour. I'm going to use something like this puce colour. Click save. So when I click off this now, because it's a reference, it's actually black, but when I click off that to make it active, you can see that it is a pink colour, so I could use that to differentiate them between my blue curves that I might create inside Maya. So if I was creating, say, some curves in here, which is a 1x1 one, if I click off it, you can see this is a blue curve. Okay, so all saved, all set, and I can make it into a reference curve if I want. So now I'm going to save this scene as, obviously we saved it base vector, so we will now call this our white box underscore v1 v01, and click save and click continue. Okay, so that completes the second video, and this is the video that I want to, this brings us back to Maya. So you've now got two videos where you've digitized a complete drawing, and I'd like you to make sure you write up your journal entries to explain the process that you've used, but also to really think about the kind of things that we can bring into this.